Hello, and welcome to a special GIS Health feature. Today on the program, we will be speaking about healthy co-parenting relationships and its impact on children. Reporting for the Ministry of Health and Social Development, I am Public Health Communications Specialist Natasha Letzum. This interview is one of many that will be conducted during the month of June in celebration of Men's Health Month. Men's Health Month is an initiative by the Department of Gender Affairs. In this interview, we will try to bridge the gap that currently exists between parents who are no longer in a relationship for the betterment of their child or children. Our guest for today's program is Dr. Reverend Wright and Mr. Brian Ishmael. Thank you for coming on the program, gentlemen.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to be here.
Great. Now, our topic today is healthy co-parenting relationships. To get us started, why do you think positive parental relationships are important for the development of a child?
You're looking at me, so I guess I'll go first. No disrespect, man. It is important for the simple reason that you have to care about what you're putting out, what the future is going to receive. So it begins with the development and the nurturing in a stage where they're still impressionable and where it still makes a difference.
The focus is on the child, and when you have a broken relationship, it then turn on the child. You have to focus on the child for the child well-being. You have to focus. It's all about the child. You have to arrange with the mother whatever way you can to keep that relationship with the child healthy.
Definitely. But we know in a small society like ours, we're seeing it, and not just locally, but around the world, where we have many single parenting households, and there's a lot of dysfunction between parents. Now, how does dysfunctional relationships and which results in absent fathers, how would these affect children as babies, as young children, and as teenagers?
I think I think it will affect them while growing up. Teenagers, when they get to teenagers, and even when they get to adulthood, they need to have the parents at all time. And there are times parents pass negative information to the kids, and it affects them that way.
At various stages of a child's life, even if the child does not know what they're missing, they do know instinctively that they are missing something. And that something, that void, has to be filled by something or someone. Empty places have to be filled in order to function. In order for a child to grow up normally without the normal things, it becomes an issue that is dealt with in the future.
Definitely. Now, you alluded to broken relationships, Brian, a little earlier. Sometimes, relationships, they break up for a lot of different reasons, and sometimes there's hatred and resentment. Now, from your past experience, have you ever experienced relationships like that, and how did you deal with it?
Yes, I experienced that already, and what the key thing is, again, is to focus on the child, regardless of the child didn't ask to be in that. And as parent, you have to then focus on the child, and you have to find a way to communicate with, as both parents communicate with each other, to have a mutual understanding in which way you deal with that situation for the purpose of the child.
No, it's easier said than done, because if you and I are in a relationship and the relationship is broken, depends on the term it was broken, and no, I as a mother can't stand your guts, but we have to be able to coexist for the betterment of this child. Dr. Ray, tell us, how would we be able to do that? And we want to do it, but sometimes we each have our own varying personalities and bitterness and resentment for each other. But we need to understand at the end of the day, it is more healthy to work in the best interest of the child, but we still would need some sort of counseling to get past that hurdle. How would you help us out in that situation?
Before I answer that, I want to make everybody noticed the ease. Did you notice how easy she said, "I hate your guts"? You see, my point is, not you personally, obviously there's nothing here,
in general.
but I'm talking about in general. That comes easy. It's easy to say, you know, I'm not with you anymore, we're not sexing anymore, we're not together no more, you have another man now, you know, what's the point? That's easy because our human nature, our insides are telling us if you're not for me, you're against me, even though there is a child involved. So the focus, as he said, when something's said right, you don't need to throw a lot of gravy on it. The focus has to be on the child in spite of. No matter what I look like now, I don't look like what I've been through. I have been on that side. And without, Tortola's a small place, I don't want to put anybody's business out there but my own. I had to fight for a child in 2 countries. When the mother sent her to another country, I was like, I hired a lawyer in that country because I was determined to be a part of that particular child's life. Yet he said it, you have to want to do it. Regardless of how I feel about the woman who so easily said she hates my guts, it is not up to that woman. It is up to me to do what I'm supposed to do. You have no control over what people do to you, but you have every control over how you respond.
That's right.
To what they say.
That's right. That's right.
And in a case, it is selfishness,
It is
right?
selfishness.
Because at the end of the day, we're looking for how it will impact the child. Now, Dr. Wright, continue and let us know if we as parents, if we can't effectively co-parent once that relationship has turned bad or has ended. Shed some light on the impact of the future generation.
The impact of the future generation depends on what it is that is being done here and now. Because you have to look at the situation in a real way. As a Christian, I believe in Jesus, but Jesus lived in a real world with real problems. So you have to look at things in a realistic way. If you have a man who and he and the woman, for whatever reason, have split up, and there's a child involved, you also now have who he's involved with now. Because I will tell you that if you have an outside child, so to speak, and I only use that term for the purpose of labeling, if you have an outside child, and you're taking money out the home you're in now to provide for that child, the woman in that home might not be too keen on her having less to work with to go to this outside child. You still have to shelter your responsibilities in such a way that it does not affect what you're in now. Everything you do or say has to be done with how is this going to affect my child in mind. It has to be.
No, you just said that in your own experience, so you had to protect your child, or you had to fight for your child in 2 different countries. There are some spiteful people, and some of them use children as a weapon against fathers and against mothers.
All the time.
But how does the law protect us, or what protection does a man have against this kind of behavior to ensure that those who really want to play that role in their child will be able to do so?
The law, believe it or not, a lot of people say the law is biased and the police are biased and social development is biased. The law is a very fair and even-handed law, but it's slow. It is a process that is time-consuming and it's expensive. So judges have common sense. When they get all the facts before them, they could see if somebody is trying to do the right thing. A man just has to have the patience and the desire to see the process through to the very end, regardless. If a man's paying child support and he's not being allowed to see the child, he still has to pay that child support, because the argument is not between you and the woman, it's between you and the queen, you and the court system. You have to do what's right. So getting angry ain't gonna help. Do what you're supposed to do, and then make the law do what it's supposed to do on your behalf. It takes patience, but the law will eventually get it right.
Now, Brian, have you ever encountered such a situation?
Yes,
How
yes,
did you deal with it?
I had, where my son, I have a son, an older son, where he wasn't here, he moved to the States, and I had to find a way to deal with that situation, to communicate with the mother and let her understand what it is and what it takes in order for me to see my son or get to communicate with him. In situations like that, you have to be respect. You have to show respect to the mother, as upset as you might be. You have to find a mutual ground, because what you want to do is for both of you all to come together and get together and say, well, this is what we want for our child. Set a goal. This is the quality we want to raise our child. Regardless that, in spite that you guys not together, but you have to come to understand and say, this is what we want for this child, and this is the way we have to communicate with this child. It doesn't matter, even if you're not talking, but one come for this child, you guys should get together and say what you have to say for the betterment of this child. When I go through my experience, that's what I had to come for, and I think guys need to do that. You're going to find you all are different people. You are going to have misunderstanding, but you have to come together, find a way to come together to spend time with this child, and to be consistent with finance for this child. You know, and even when you're spending time with this child, talking about spending time, you're not just taking the child, bringing the child to your environment and leaving the child for someone else to look after as a father. Right. You have to take your time and educate that child, because a father that's what parenting is. You sit and you educate that child. You spend time, not all the time you take the child and play with the child. You have to sit down and speak one-on-one with the child. You have to be honest with this child. You are the role model of this child. The child look up to you. You have to keep those ground and those standards for this child. You have to be honest with the child. You have to keep those qualities those are what kids looking for. So you take that and you bring that into those kids. And a purpose of parenting is to prepare a child to become an adult. You have to educate this child with all the things that the qualities adults need and to prepare them for adult. To when they become an adult, and you also have to let them know at some point in time they have to go on their own. So you cannot be there with them and teaching them or training them or not giving them the information that they need to be adults, to become adults, and expect them to be all adults. And otherwise, I think it's wrong to have a child, a human being at 40 and 30, 40, 50 years at home. You have to teach them, prepare them for that, for when they get to that age, so they can move on their own.
So definitely some key things you're saying there. It is, I think some men think that taking care of their children is financial.
Finances, no, it's not.
It's a small part of it.
It's a part of it, and you cannot live without finances. Those kids, they know the mother have to buy everything you have to pay for. But parenting, you have to take time. And don't take the child and bring the child in your environment, like I say, and leave the child and go. You have to spend that time with this child. You don't always take the child to a horse race or to buy something for this child, but to quality times, educate the child for growing up, preparing this child to become an adult. That's what parenting is about, in both mother and father. So it's more than just that.
I love it. Thank you so much for that, Brian.
Thank you very much.
Now, as we know that in the BVI, in a lot of cultures in the Caribbean, one man may have a child in several different homes, and there could be a challenge in kind of bringing them all together to spend time. But in terms of ensuring that this father properly, let each of these children know, listen, we are our family, this is your brother, this is your sister. How do you feel men are doing in that area, and what tips would you share?
Well, basically, men in that area are not doing well at all. It's not a matter of taking a survey. There's no official scientific data, but judging from the effects of what's going on in the community, they're not doing well at all. I've had some issues personally where I tell everybody, this is your sister, but you don't fight your sister, you fight the world. You all are supposed to be together, and this is a place you should be able to run to. That's not my sister, so-and-so, and so. A lot of that comes from what the parents instill in the children. If you tell somebody, that you're the only legal child, you have all the rights, them other children are adopted or not his, it's what the parents instill on both sides in the child. If the mother is saying, I hate your father worthless, you don't give me anything, that child is going to grow up with that attitude and that mentality. By the same token, and I say this a lot, and the men I talk to and counsel get upset with me, your child support will never be enough. Never.
Never.
You can't raise a child on what most courts give a woman, and I don't care what it is. I pay child support. It goes out every month, but the child is with me Friday at 6 until Sunday at 6. So if she needs something, if there's a Queen show she wants to go to, if she needs her hair done, am I supposed to now say I pay my child support? We done? You know, you can't do that.
No,
you know, you have, but it is being done.
Right.
Your mother get money. I threw at this. You can't raise fish, pet, dog on what most courts give a woman in child support and face the reality. Being a father, even if you're a part-time father, it's still a full-time job.
A full-time job, yeah. Let me say something to that. I have two kids before I was married, and the older kids, I have my son in the States. He's the one that's away from us. The two other kids, and I call him, and I will let my younger son speak to him. He and my older daughter, they have a relationship, and we let them communicate with each other. And I try to bring him down here every summer, or as much as I can. Not only every summer. Every other day, I talk to him on the phone. We have different topics. We talk about schooling. We talk about the things he needs to do and the environment that he's hanging out in, and growing up as a teenager, things that's important for him to do. And I give them information on different levels. As they grow older, they get different informations from me. But I also let them know that they have to love each other and share with each other and stuff like that. So that's the way I communicate with my kids, and that's the information I give them.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
And the thing that you brought up in terms of that poisoning the children's mind towards their siblings and towards their parent, that's never a good thing. And we see the effects every day of it when we don't have healthy co-parenting relationships. Now, in terms of being able to communicate effectively in these co-parenting relationships, what kind of tips? Yes, we want to keep the conversation child-focused, but how? What type of tips can you share with us so that we could build healthier relationships as co-parents?
Basically, there's no manual. There's no guidebook, because what works with child A might not work with child B. Each child has different personality. You have two, I have different children, and what works on one might not work with the other. One child might take what you say and test you.
No, I'm actually talking about the relationship
I am.
with
the mother.
I'm going to get to that. It deals with the way that you approach the situation. It's more important to me that you focus on and deal with the child. As much as you are supposed to love everybody, we live in a world where we're supposed to love everybody and everything's supposed to be all right. You can love somebody, but they might be hard to like.
Sure.
They might be hard to get along with. That being the case, you have to accept them for what they are. Realize that what you had together is gone. You have to deal with them inclusive of their faults. And you have to make the child know exactly what's happening. When we were coming up, I'm a little older than both of y'all. When somebody said your mother, boy, that was a fight. Yeah, why you couldn't that. But when somebody said your father,
it's cool.
No,
nobody even said nothing.
No, that's part of the sentence right now.
Because if you wanted to hurt somebody, you said your mother's a, and it was time for knuckle up. It's time for a fight. But when it's time to say your father, why not? Both are parents. What's the difference? How come we feel one way about our mothers and another way about our fathers? When we begin to look at that, then we'll begin to find the answers as to why we have to do what we have to do. Yes.
I think also with that question there, again, parents have to come together for the betterment of this child. It's a very difficult situation.
If they can.
Because when that part occurred there, but co-parenting is to come together, have an understanding, and like I say early on, is to say that's a standard. That's the standard we want to set for our child, and let's set that standard and we move from there. Both parents have to be on the same level. They have to communicate together, say want the same thing for this child, and you have to be consistent. You cannot tell this child one thing there, and you tell this child the other thing. Many times you're finding that kids having problems in different ways, even one come for spending money or different attitudes, and that come from either one of the parents, because there's no consistency in there. You have to be consistent. parents have to come together and say, this is what we want for our child, and this is what we have to do. You cannot tell this child, don't do that, and this one saying it's okay to do.
True.
You will have to be together. That is because it's not like you will be in home. Many times you're not seeing this child, the mother is there. And the father is not there, it's just the mother. And mother's been so weak. You have to try your best to be consistent. And that's the key thing, I think, for co-parenting.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it in spite of all the situations, because there might be some standards in one house that are not there in another.
That's right.
If you have a girl child and one parent lets the girl child come and go as she please, but then when she gets to house B, and the rules are, you're not taking out my daughter unless you come in the house. I have to see you. You ain't honking the horn and she going out to you. It might come down to something simpler, where I might come up old school and say what I say goes. And the child's asking me, well, my mother lets me talk back to her.
That's right.
This ain't your mother's house. So what he said about consistency, if a child knows what to expect from you, 99% of the time they will attempt to adjust their behavior. But if a child knows what they can get away with, that's why when they're younger, they'll run from parent to parent, and they will play one off against the other.
That's right.
Because they have learned early on, they got a very good radar to detect who's weak in what areas and just what they can get away with.
Right. I know that from my personal experience.
We all do as parents.
My 4-year-old daughter, if I do something to her, she's, Daddy! And if Daddy's disciplined her, she's like, Mommy! So if she's 4 years old and she can, work this high science planning. Come and think on teenagers
when she's 14.
Been around.
That's right.
And so definitely that consistency that you're speaking about is very important.
And that consistency does not, I'm sorry to cut you, does not depend on the other person.
Right.
Because you have to maintain the standard that you have set.
Right.
And if they know that's the standard for his house, then they'll know what they could get away with and which tests to put on. They will test you.
Now, gentlemen, I want to thank you for this interview. I think this topic is a very important topic and one that needed to be addressed if we're going to rebuild positive relationships for the betterment of children. Now, I know that both of you have been in co-parenting situations. Now, as we close, what have you learned? What lessons have you learned having been in that situation, and how has it made you a better father?
I don't have a problem. I was deferring to. Listen, in my particular case, because I can't tell anybody's business but my own, it has taught me to reflect, reason, and then react. Reflect, reason, and then react. Take the situation for what it's worth. Reflect on the things that are needed for this particular situation at this particular point in time, and then react to it, because there's another party involved. The child does have a mother, even though the mother and I are not together. She has a mother. And if I hate or dislike the mother so much that I don't want her to succeed, well, if she doesn't stand, the child falls. So I have to look out for what she's saying and doing, and how's her life going. Secondly, then I have to deal with the child. Find out how this action is going to affect her, because remember, she's leaving me and going back home. So we all have to be able to come together, but if we can't come together, as my brother said, we have to deal with the situation as a father. I've learned that there's some things you can't fight with the physical strength, that you have to deal with it from a life experience point of view. And if you mature, some men are men at 17, and some men are boys at 70.
That's right.
All right, and how you react will determine where you stand.
Yeah, in this case there, because of my experience and what I had to do, you have to be humble, show some respect to the individual, and find a way to communicate with the mother, no matter what. It's harder to say than done, but you have to find a way to communicate with the mother, regardless of what it takes. You have to communicate with the mother in order to get to the child, for the well-being of the child. Yeah.
But thank you again, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for tuning into this health feature. Healthy co-parenting relationships is vital to the emotional and cognitive development of a child. In some cases, it may not be easy for a father and mother to have a positive relationship for the sake of their child. However, we are encouraging you to try. For persons who are willing, the Social Development Department will be hosting a parenting program entitled Co-Parenting, Conscious Parenting every Tuesday and Thursday from June 16th to the 9th of July at the BVI Red Cross Conference Room. This program is to assist parents who are no longer in an intimate relationship to parent in a cohesive manner. Remember, the most effective way to parent a child is to do it together, with a mother and father playing their equal roles. Reporting for the Ministry of Health and Social Development, I am Public Health Communications Specialist Natasha Letzum. Peace and blessings.